a city council meeting of the Lake City City Councils. And it's Tuesday, July 2023. We're down here in the mill on Main Street live. And we're also recording this via Zoom later on our city YouTube site. So with that, I would ask everyone to stand for the pledge of allegiance. The pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right, like hearing the little dude up there in front of the leech. All right, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order and let's get a roll call.
Councilmember Daughtry,
Happy to be here.
Councilmember Peter Shagan,
Present.
Councilmember Donahue,
Present.
Councilmember Dickinson, present. Councilmember Jorstad, here. Councilmember Ewing. He did tell me he would not be here tonight. Councilmember Tagent.
Present. Move to excuse Councilmember Ewing.
Second. We've got a motion and a second to excuse Councilmember Ewing. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, let's go ahead. Council President, we get an agenda.
Yes, I have a couple of requests for a couple of minor changes. I'd like to move that under guest business, we start with item B and then move to item A. And would also like to move that under consent, we add the cancellation of next Tuesday's workshop.
Move to approve the agenda as amended. Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mayor, you have an agenda.
Appreciate it. So with that, let's go to guest business and swearing in up to. Lacey first officer. Steve.
Thanks, Mayor.
Chief, before you start here, there was a request you can take that and on my when you win your oath.
Get to do karaoke tonight. All right. I'll make sure he gets it. I'll hand it to him. All right. So can I have Elizabeth and Amber come on up? It has been a very busy day at the police department. We are doing a sergeant assessment center for our promotions for sergeants. We've been out training these two at the range today and getting through their training. And then we have National Women in Law Enforcement Day today. So this is very special for us. Did you guys get your picture taken today? Did you get your picture taken today? Yeah, you did. And yeah, that's great. So I'm going to introduce Elizabeth and Amber to you tonight. I'll start off with Amber Sharu Haas. There we go. It's worse than Baziz though. So Amber, after a 4.5-year career as the military police officer with the U.S. Navy and 2 years of the hardest job of her life as a stay-at-home mom, Amber began her law enforcement career in 2020 with the City of Redmond Police Department, moving to Washington from California. Amber immediately took interest in becoming an IPMBA. What does that stand for, Amber? What's that stand for? A mountain bike cop. All right. With obvious disregard to the fact that she can never look cool as being a bike cop. Amber recently got married this year to her incredible husband, Ty, who's in the audience. And together they have a blended family, two families, and have 3 children, Kate, who is 6, Elijah, who is 5, and Oliver, who is 3. To say their household is, whoops, it's dying. Oh, messing with it again, Troy. To say their household is lively would be an understatement. When she's not working at the police department, Amber and her family enjoy working out together, going to church, riding bikes, training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, gardening, and playing with their animals. That is Amber. We will now introduce Elizabeth Shafchuk. All right. It's going to get tough down here at the PD, I believe me. So Elizabeth was born and raised in Linwood, Washington, and is the 3rd oldest of 9 kids. Throughout her 4 years in high school, Elizabeth volunteered for 4 years at the elementary school. Senior year in high school, Elizabeth started attending Edmonds Community College, even though she had no idea what career she wanted to go into. Later that year, Elizabeth attended the Linwood Police Department Citizens Academy, where she learned about law enforcement. After the Citizens Academy, Elizabeth's interest in law enforcement grew. She joined the Linwood Police Explorer Program. Elizabeth also met Giles, she's here in the audience too, who invited Elizabeth to become a volunteer as a role player at police trainings. Sorry. For the next several years, Elizabeth volunteered as a role player at numerous agencies throughout the region. With support of her parents, Elizabeth decided she wanted to pursue a career in law enforcement. Elizabeth applied with the King County Sheriff's Office in 2019, graduating from CJTC in the year 2020 as a certified police officer. Elizabeth has also loved to serve people of all ages. Throughout her life, Elizabeth has volunteered as a missions team member and has traveled to places like Mexico, Cuba, Poland, where she spent numerous hours volunteering with kids and serving as a translator for the Ukrainian refugees when she was in Poland. During Elizabeth's personal time, she loves to go fishing with her 3 youngest siblings. She loves to take them on adventures to parks and lakes. Elizabeth also loves to travel, go on hikes with her dog, the Golden Doodle. What's his name? Nova. I love it. Elizabeth is thankful for the opportunity to serve the community of Lake Stevens. With that, Mayor, can you come forward and swear the 2 new officers in? Please take the mic.
Drop it afterwards. So I think great intros to both of these officers that are coming in. I think it's always interesting and fun to know that police officers aren't just police officers, that they're family members, their sons, daughters, moms, whatever they are, they're other than police officers. And it's just a thing that they do. And I thought in both of their bios, really interesting backgrounds that they bring those experiences and thoughts onto our streets here in Lake Stevens and provide just a great community service, not only being police officers. So I know no one wants to hear me talk. So with that, I'm not going to try either one of your names. So when I say I, you just say your name. All right. Let's go with I. Raise your right hand. I. No, you're. Okay. All right. Let's try this again. I'm not going to try to say your names. So I'm going to say I, and then you say your name. Note that on the FTO. Yeah. Failure to follow directions. Okay. So let's try this again. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States, the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington, the ordinances of the city of Lake Stevens, and the mission and regulations of the Lake Stevens Police Department. And that I will faithfully and impartially perform and discharge the duties of a Lake Stevens police officer according to law and to the best of my ability. There we go. Thank you very much. Yeah.
So with this, we're very excited. We've done a really good job working with HR this year in hiring. This allows us now to have 4 openings. We do have 1 pending retirement and maybe 1 after that, but we do, with all the hard work so far, we have just 4 openings in our agency. We're very excited. Actually, there is a guy out here that I want to recruit, but I think he just tried to sneak away. He's Amber brought him in. You know, that's what has been great with us. We have a lot of local people from other agencies that live in our city, and I just go after the wife and say, hey, I can cut his commute down by 2 hours and it works out really great. So we're very excited to have everybody. So thank you. I know Elizabeth's family's here. There's a big group of them, and Amber had her family here tonight too to be. This is very exciting for the day that it is and for the work that's being done. We're very excited. So thank you.
All right, so with that, let's go to a presentation by Lot C.
So Kristen, come on up here. I brought Kristen in because she's from Boise, Idaho, so we all know where Mayor was from. So, you know, it's going to work a great relationship here. So I'm just going to introduce these folks. So I was over a WASPIC conference in May and ran into Mac, who works for Flock, and he was explaining what the Flock system is. And I know the benefits from this. There's 41 agencies in our state that use this system right now. And she's going to go through this PowerPoint. She's going to give you the background of what Flock is. So when you have constituents and stuff come up to you, you understand it, that what it is, what the equipment does, and how we can help us with our investigations. So when we have somebody doing the damage that they do out here in the park, they drive through the camera, we're able to track some of that. So we're very excited, but these two came from out of state here to be in person with our council. So Hector, he's right here. This is her like what, first week, second week. So she gets to do her first presentation with you guys. So I'm gonna turn it over to Kristen. Kristen, thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Chief. Good evening, council members, Mayor Lake Stevens. Thank you so much for giving us the time and opportunity to share some information. And on National Women in Law Enforcement Day, it's really important. It's near and dear to my heart. So Flock safety, we'll jump right into it. Thank you. Chief explained a little bit about why Lake Stevens is interested in Flock safety, and we'll get a bit more into that. Flock's mission is to eliminate crime and to build a safer future together. Next slide, please. Why Flock Safety? To give a little bit of background as to how the company came to be, I want to share a little bit about our founder and CEO, Garrett Langley. So Garrett's based in Atlanta, and his neighborhood was experiencing an uptick in crime, namely vehicle burglaries and home burglaries and some property theft. He was the victim himself, went to his local police department and asked, what can be done about this? How can we prevent this from happening? You know, where is it in the investigation, et cetera? Law enforcement apologetically said, not a whole lot. We don't have any evidence. We don't have any leads. And so I'm sorry. So then he asked further, well, what could help you investigate these crimes and instances in our neighborhood? And the response was a license plate number, a vehicle description, something that law enforcement could really take and investigate further. So he got to researching a ton, and knowing that the majority of crimes are committed in conjunction with a vehicle, he started looking into license plate reading technology and discovered a few key things. One, that it's been around since probably the 1970s. Two, the technology and the cameras were really expensive. So communities who wanted to protect their neighborhoods really couldn't access that. If they could, and they did, by the time it all got implemented and up and running, the technology had already advanced so far that it rendered the cameras obsolete. And then the third thing is that those companies that were providing the technology would then sell the data that they collected to third parties. He created a company and addressed those three things, and what Flock Safety is today, which we'll get into, and what it's not, but to address those issues so that it's an ethical company that builds an ethical product, it's efficient, and it gives law enforcement the tools they need to effectively solve these crimes. What we see today is that there are limited police resources. Your department wears many, many hats, and they need efficient, timely tools to investigate and resolve crime. Crime happens every day, and also trust is incredibly important. And trust in your department provides legitimacy in the department. So we believe that we have the opportunity with this technology to really multiply your force, your tools to capture objective, unbiased evidence given to the right people, your officers, and also to engage the community to grow support and to really understand the technology. Next slide, please. So how does the technology work? The important piece of this slide right here is that image of that vehicle. So when a vehicle passes by one of our cameras, that is what it captures. The back of the vehicle, the license plate, and then what we refer to as a vehicle fingerprint, which creates metadata, the make, the model, the color, there's a roof rack, so a vehicle fingerprint. That is all that it captures. Next slide. So this is license plate recognition. It's used to solve crime and it adheres to all state laws. What it is not tied to any personal identifying information whatsoever. It's that still image of the license plate and the vehicle. And really important is that the data is not stored beyond 30 days. At the 30-day mark, it is completely wiped and it is not recoverable. We came upon that kind of sweet spot of 30 days because it gives law enforcement just enough time to investigate a crime. Say you were on vacation for a couple of weeks and you come back and you discover that your home was burglarized. Well, we have time enough to get the right information into law enforcement hands to investigate. At the same time, we're not stockpiling loads of still images of vehicles unnecessarily. Next slide. Thank you. So how does it prevent and eliminate crime? Well, it's proactive. When a wanted or a vehicle alert for, say, a missing vulnerable person is in our system, if that vehicle passes by a camera, one of our cameras, an officer in your community will get an alert within 20 seconds. So very timely, and with a lot of crimes, we know time is of the essence and critical to safety. It's investigative. As clearance rates increase, crime rates decrease. And then lastly, it acts as a deterrent. Chief mentioned that there are 41 jurisdictions in Washington that utilize these cameras. And when you are a part of Flock Safety, you are part of a safety network, a community that's collaborative to, again, multiply that force. Next slide. So mitigating risk. How do we protect you and your privacy? It's really important to Flock. Footage is owned by your city, not by Flock. It will never be sold or shared by Flock. All the data is stored on the AWS cloud, and the data is encrypted end to end. And the AWS cloud, I am not a technical person, but that is top of the line security. So your data is protected. A search reason is required by your department for an audit trail. So there's no arbitrary looking up of information. And this is not used for traffic enforcement. And next slide. More about transparency and insights. So this is an example from Vallejo PD out in California, but this is an optional feature provided by Flock that your department can choose to utilize, and it's customizable for each agency, and it shares information on what agencies the license plate recognition is shared with. It gives stats on usage and also provides information to your department's policy. There's the data insights dashboard, which your department and the council can utilize to see, are we using the system? Is it giving us a return on investment? And next slide. So we are already solving and preventing crime. Next. These are a list of the different agencies, your neighbors, that are currently using the technology. Next slide. So Tukwila, did I pronounce that correctly? Tukwila, darn it. Okay, Tukwila. So Tukwila PD, they had an interesting instance, and one day they received an alert that a stolen vehicle had driven by one of the cameras. So they initiated a traffic stop. As they were approaching that vehicle, a second vehicle that they come to find out was also stolen, took off from them. They were able to locate and take that subject under arrest and went back to the first stolen vehicle and found that first stolen vehicle, that person was in possession of fentanyl and methamphetamine. And then later that day in the same parking lot, we're able to go back and recover a third stolen vehicle that had also been alerted by the camera system. And next. So Yakima PD, I won't go through all of these stats and read that long quote by Chief Murray there, but in less than a year, Yakima PD has used the LPR cameras to identify 78 sex offenders, 33 missing persons. And Chief Murray just shares that he believes this is their #1 intelligence sharing tool. Next, please. This case study I use as an example to show the preventative benefits of this tool. San Bruno, California, this made national headlines. There were 5 subjects that attempted a smash and grab at a jewelry store. They came in, the owner fought back and chased off the suspects. PD was given a vehicle description and they entered it into the Flock system, created an alert. PD was really fearful that the suspects would return to the jewelry store and escalate the level of violence. And so they were alerted that the suspect vehicle was returning to the store and were able to intercept and prevent that situation from escalating again. So really showing that preventative tool of the technology. Next. And lastly, I'll leave you with this one. This case study has been really impactful for the Chamblee, Georgia community, as well as Flock staff. This is really why we do our jobs. So this picture of mom and baby, mom was out taking baby for a walk in the stroller. She was approached by 2 masked armed individuals. And after a struggle, they took off with the baby. Mom did not get a license plate number. As you can imagine, it was a pretty intense, really scary situation, and her baby was taken from her. But she was able to give officers a vehicle description. That description was entered into the Flock system, and a couple hours later, PD across state lines got an alert that that suspect vehicle had entered their jurisdiction. They were able to initiate a felony traffic stop and safely returned baby back to mom. Stranger on stranger abduction is very, very rare, extremely rare. And time is critical in getting baby back to mom. So again, this just demonstrates the incredible impact that the technology can have to do some really, really good work. I've done a lot of talking. I will end with that and pass it back over to Chief Counsel.
Just on this, thank you. I appreciate it, Christian. I appreciate you coming all the way where your friend came from. Just this weekend, you guys heard about the homicide we accidentally had down here at Machias Road that was in the county. That vehicle lived in our city. So I don't know if you saw the paper where he was stopped. It was our officers that took him into custody. And it was all based off the vehicle description. There was a training officer that just got out of the patrol car by the county, observed the vehicle as he got off of his ride along, said, I think this is the car, called us. We got down there and we were able to take him into custody. This stuff here helps us to identify those cars. And it's very important for us in our investigations. So I appreciate your time tonight to listen to this presentation. You guys have any questions?
Any questions?
I have a question. How many cameras do just?
It just depends on the territory and the funding. There's multiple, I mean, Arlington PD, Marysville just bought 5 to start off with. I mean, it just depends on the city. I have a friend out in Medina, Medina. He just asked for a bunch and he got a check within 3 minutes. So But this is not only for our community, our businesses. So we reached out to the chamber and gave the chamber the information too, because people put them in their business parking lots and pay for them to do that. So that also goes into our database too. So we can track that information too. So.
Are these
That's fine.
cameras movable or are they stationary in specific spots that you are targeting, I guess, maybe for high crime?
Yeah, you want to talk
areas?
about that, Hector?
So we have a couple different products. The main product, which is what we've been discussing tonight, are stationary cameras. The benefit of that is that working with your police department, our deployments will assess crime patterns, traffic patterns, so that you have the biggest benefit. There is what's called a Falcon Flex, which your police department can purchase for kind of hotspots or specific activities that they're looking into. And that's also available.
So I assume, Chief, that you're going to be bringing a proposal
Yes,
like at the retreat or what?
it's part of the proposal for the budget.
And do we want to do a presentation to the chamber?
Yes, we're setting that up. We actually reached out to Matt Tabor and are working through that process with them.
And you don't know the good candidate for his HOAs property.
Yeah. Which is
So
really nice.
I
It's
think,
business.
I think your question about can it be movable would help us maybe stop some of our graffiti.
Yeah. Can private businesses retain this service as well?
Yes,
So, Safeway, for instance, could put this in their parking lot or something?
yes, homeowners associations, businesses,
Okay.
private
But-
and public.
But it doesn't capture personally identifiable information, correct?
Yeah, so for the private side of our business, it's basically a private-public partnership. That business would have the cameras installed in their parking lot, parking garage, et cetera. Your police department will receive the hot list alerts. They are not privy to that type of information. It's CGIS data, which is only for law enforcement.
Sorry, I have a follow-up question on that. So is it that the system does not capture personally identifiable information, or that information is just not passed along to the law enforcement agency?
So the system doesn't capture personal identifiable information, and the way we to define that to you, the cameras are capturing images of the back of vehicles. If that vehicle or that license plate matches a wanted vehicle or description that they're looking for, an investigation then commences. Your police department, depending on on their policy, will then verify that alert, verify who is driving that vehicle. But we are only alerting on the vehicle, not saying John Smith is in that vehicle, for example.
So we'd have to do further investigation on that to see who is actually driving the vehicle. We just get the vehicle. So if I needed a white van with a ladder on top, I don't know who drives those, but we may be able to identify that and be able to go after the person that owns that van. So
I don't have a ladder on mine.
that's why I added the ladder.
But if a person walks up with a can of paint to a
Yep.
wall to graffiti the wall, it's not gonna
No, we'd
be
be,
of any
we'd
benefit.
be
in
looking
that
for a getaway
situation.
vehicle though.
Right, got it. Okay,
Correct.
yep, that makes sense.
And so,
Or for example, if you had a known graffiti artist in
Yes.
that corridor and you knew that they drove a black Jetta, that could get entered into the clock system by Seattle PD or whoever. And then when it's seen coming in like Stevens, we would know that.
Yeah, if we have a license plate tied into certain crimes, we can also put that alert in ourselves and alert other agencies, and they can alert us because we're all tied together with the system. So that's what's nice about it. We share information. So if you have an amber alert or a silver alert where you're looking for a certain vehicle, we can put that information as an alert, and it would alert us if that person came into our town. So that's also very helpful.
It seems like that's a little bit faster and more accurate than just a regular Amber Alert.
Yeah, 20 seconds. That's pretty good.
so I just want to make sure I'm understanding what was written on slide 15 then, because it specifically mentions violent person alerts, wanted people, sex offenders. So that sounds like alerts at the person or personal level. How is that tied to a specific vehicle?
Yep. So our system is integrated with the National Crime Information Center. So say there is a stolen vehicle out of Seattle, Seattle PD enters that information into NCIC, it's the acronym, And then that would, if that vehicle enters Lake Stevens, officers would get an alert within 20 seconds that that wanted vehicle was in the area. And the same with National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. If there is an alert with an associated vehicle, that's how that information would get to officers. In
Okay, so
addition-
it's a suspicion then. If the vehicle is stolen, officers can tag it as the driver is likely a violent person.
Yes.
Okay,
That's why you have to establish probable cause and do a little bit more legwork on the back end of it, but it does assist us giving that start.
okay. That makes more sense. And then my last question is regarding AWS. You mentioned that the city owns the data, but who has control over the server?
Yes, so the data is uploaded to and it is stored in the AWS server. And then once your officers download an image, they then retain that data, and then Flock would never sell or have the ability to sell that information.
So, yeah, so what we do, we download the information, the pictures, put it into our case file. They would delete everything that they had on their server. So it would become part of our case evidence. It's a digital evidence photo. So what you're doing is downloading that picture. You push a button, you hit download, it downloads the photos that we're looking for. We store that into our case file and the rest of it gets deleted off their server. That's where it came. So we have the data. That means we downloaded it, stored it into our digital evidence program and kept that for our case, for our investigation. Does that make sense?
That does. Before that happens, though, it is on the Flock AWS server.
So
Okay.
the servers, we are basically a custodian of the data for you, but we do not have access to that data. We're providing the service. Only your department, using a case number can pull or query the system for images taken within Lake Stevens.
So sorry, I don't want to burn too much time on this, but I just want to make sure I understand. So you physically could never, ever access the data? Like say you were, it was a legal order, from a court.
Yeah, so that question comes up a lot, and obviously we can't give you legal counsel, but typically it would be the same process as your body camera data, for example, right? We would have to defer to your legal team, your process, if let's say it's subpoenaed specifically,
Right.
and then we could assist in those situations with the permission of your department, but we do not own the data, so we can't provide it without going through you all.
Okay.
When then does the public records come into play? Is it become a public record after we download the information? But prior to that, it's not our property, and so then it's not subject to public record? Okay.
So we're gonna get a whole thing on this.
Okay.
Other questions? Great, appreciate the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great. We're going to go to citizens' comments at this time. So the city council allows for citizens' comments on any subject up to 3 minutes. And we first ask online if there's anybody online who would raise their digital hand. Let us know if you want to provide citizens' comments.
I see 2 people online and one of them's our staff member. So anybody else that would like to speak to the council, raise your digital hand so I can let you into the meeting.
See none?
No, and no green sheets tonight, Mayor.
Okay, but I think that there is I know at least one person who wants to speak tonight. So Bruce, go ahead. Everybody, nobody, yeah.
Wow, I think they want. Bruce Morton, 11222 Vernon Road. I think they may want to come back. Oh, well, they're missing out. I decided to come to tonight's meeting because I saw what was being presented tonight, what you just saw. And I strongly oppose the installation of this Flock ALPR surveillance system. I don't want my movements to be monitored. I don't want the police in the city to have a database of everyone's movement over a 30-day window. I don't believe Flock's promises of privacy, encryption, and data retention. Flock's CEO has spoken extensively about how additional AI surveillance techniques are planned in the future, such as their Raven product, which records sounds. The ACLU has acknowledged some of the benefits that Flock can provide. There are significant risks, but there are significant risks of future encroachment on civil rights. I don't want Flock's nose to get under the Lake Stevens tent. A recent ACLU report found that Flock's system misidentified license plates in about 10% of the time. This has led to innocent people being terrorized by police who act on these erroneous cameras. Flock's presentation states that their system will use the NCIC to identify criminals. The ACLU has found that the FBI's NCIC is notoriously full of errors. So Flock is selling an error-prone camera that checks its data against an error-prone database. What could possibly go wrong? Has any of you seen the movie Brazil from the 80s? That could be our future. I want to read to you this paragraph from the ACLU's report about Flock. Quote, surveillance systems also tend to have a disproportionate impact on brown and black and other historically disadvantaged communities. Often police departments install them disproportionately in communities of color. The NYPD used ALPR devices to abusively surveil mosques in the 2000s. And systems such as Flock's enable the continuation and intensification of patterns of policing, such as those uncovered by the Justice Department in Ferguson, Missouri. There, the DOJ found in a comprehensive report that the police department aggressively over-enforced low-level, nonviolent offenses in communities of color, a pattern that has been found across the nation, including New York City, Minneapolis, Chicago, North Carolina, Philadelphia, and Boston. In Ferguson and some other jurisdictions, low-level arrests were intentionally used to extract payments to fill municipal coffers. This practice draws poor people who can't pay fines or who dismiss court dates or who miss court dates into an escalating cycle of fees, fines, police stops, and general entanglement with the criminal justice system.
Mr. Morton, you have about 30 seconds. So.
Okay. Amplifying petty offenses into ruined lives in a truly Dickensian dynamic. Many of those stops and fines involve automobiles, and a Dragnet ALPR surveillance system lends itself very naturally to supporting that kind of policing, unquote. If you are dead set on adding these cameras to our city, the ACLU has 3 recommendations to limit potential encroachments on our civil liberties. You and the City Council have the power and authority to make the following modifications to the Flock contract. 1, data retention should be changed from 30 days.
You have 3 minutes.
Go ahead and continue.
Data retention should be changed from 30 days to 3 minutes. There's no need to hold data longer than the time needed to compare against existing watch lists. 2, data sharing should be restricted to only local use. The movements of Lake Stevens residents do not need to be shared with jurisdictions in other states or even nations. And yes, Flock has customers outside the US. And 3, only use local watch lists. Watch lists generated by outside jurisdictions are not reliable. I don't want to be arrested because my name is similar to a person who's a criminal in another state, or my vehicle description is similar to a vehicle in another state. As I said, these are contractual limitations that you can make. Doing so will allow the police to get almost all the advertised benefits while giving the citizens the most protections that we can have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruce. Anybody else? Good. All right, let's move forward on the agenda then and council business. Council President.
Thank you. Why don't we start at the end with Councilman Tadget?
I have parks tomorrow. Nothing else to report.
Great, thank you. Councilwoman Dickinson.
Well, I went to the Historic Society meeting last week and they are busy trying to raise that money. And I love this quote: "We envision our museum being a community space with a variety of educational exhibits, programs, and events that will draw in all ages to interact with their unique history." Their strategies relies on donations from individuals and businesses and organizations, and of course, grants. They also plan a social media campaign. Whenever I stop by over at the temporary museum across the way on Thursdays, the place is a jumping. It is jumping. Makes me really happy to see people in there. Santa photos, calendar, the lake calendar, history walk 4-6 times a year. I love that. You could go out and walk with them and they could tell you the story behind our town. Tea parties, and one thing that creeps me out a little bit is they want to go up to the Machias Cemetery and have a Halloween visit. So I don't know how I feel about that, but anyway, it's very creative. Then yesterday I was at the senior center board and just listening to all the activities they're doing. And after being with the Historic Society, I realized these two should work together. You've got seniors and you've got history. And I just feel like maybe I can help that happen if I can. And if I'm not allowed, go ahead, wave your finger at me and say, "No, Mary, it's not your job." But I just think it is certainly a good fit. And both of them are struggling in ways that they are. I want to thank Aaron Halverson for speaking with me today about one of the issues at the senior center. We'll work on that. And I know we will. And thank you for taking the time. And also I want to thank Parks Director Sarah Garceau for helping with another issue. And thank you very much for that. So this is what I love about our community and our city and our staff. They always step up. Thank you. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Councilman Donahue.
Thank you. So last week I touched on some of the main things that happened over the break. Since then, I think the two big things are I attended a ribbon cutting for a wonderful new sushi restaurant. I'm probably going to butcher the name. I apologize. Kiyama Sushi.
Nice.
I was joined by Councilman Dickinson, Daughtry, Jorstad, the mayor. I don't know about you guys, but I thought it was pretty great. And then I also want to make a special mention and thank you to Councilmember Peters Hagen for filling in for me at the Planning Commission meeting. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilman Peter Sagan.
Well, I was at the planning commission meeting last Wednesday. They had a public hearing regarding the comp plan amendments. They'll be coming to the council here, I believe, next month, if I'm not mistaken. CD director, right? And it was a pretty brief meeting, I think about 25 minutes. So it wasn't a lot of substance to it. Nobody testified, a couple of written comments in favor. So we'll have that coming up. We do have a sewer district board meeting this Thursday, and I'll be attending that. Other than that, looking forward to the retreat on Friday.
Thank you. Councilwoman Daughtry.
I attended the Community Transit Board of Directors meeting where we talked about the problem of the fentanyl and methamphetamines on our buses. Just so you know that was a proactive move by Community Transit, Sound Transit, Everett Transit, and there was an Oregon Transit in there also to get to the University of Washington to do some investigation on what might be happening on our trains and buses with fentanyl and opioids, or methamphetamine, I'm sorry. And what they found was trace amounts of fentanyl and methamphetamine in the ventilation systems and on some surfaces of the buses. They're all well underneath the Department of Health's recommended amounts that would be harmful to anybody that's on the bus. However, what we've come up with is some different ways of handling what we have found now, including changing our bus ventilation system again, because during the COVID era, we changed them up to a 11. Now we're going to a 13 for the HEPA filters. The other thing we've done, I think I reported on before, is we have our own transit authority type police department. They're not really police, but they're there to on certain buses to maintain our the rules and regulations for attempt to be able to be on a bus. So if they find somebody that's doing drugs, they can ask them to leave. And that's going to help quite a bit. And then the other thing that we're really worried about is, besides the people that are on our buses that are paying to get on our buses, is our bus drivers. So we're looking at other ways of ensuring that our bus drivers are safe, because they're on the buses a lot longer than anybody else is. So that's the two things we're really worried about, is the people that are riding our buses and the people that are driving those buses. The other thing that we've come up with that they're doing is a cleaning, a different cleaning, deep cleaning of the buses as they come in. And we're getting that done by an outside organization right now. And they are one of those organizations that, you know, does a deep cleaning on different things like mold abatement, lead abatement, and those kinds of things. So they're going to be training us on how to do it ourselves. And then we're going to have our own people be able to do that. So that's an important thing that's been going on. And we've been talking about this for several months on community transit and the problems we've been having. So hopefully the crime rate will go down. Hopefully we can get rid of the fentanyl problem and that on our buses. Chamber luncheon tomorrow, we're going to have the school superintendent, the fire chief, and the police chief are going to be talking to us about what's going on in those three organizations. That's starts at 11:30 tomorrow over at the school district building. And that's all I have.
Great, thank you. Just want to echo the successful ribbon cutting of the sushi restaurant. Yes, it was delicious food, but also really great to welcome new businesses into our city. And we hope they do well, and I'll definitely do my part to help support them. That's it. That's all I had tonight. Thanks.
It was good.
Delicious.
They did a nice job.
Couple things. Last Friday, I had the opportunity to have Representative Delvini in town. She presented us with $2.5 million pseudo check. It wasn't the actual check, but a check nonetheless to do our roundabout at Main and 20th down here downtown. And then we took the opportunity to drive her around the city, show her all the good things that are going on and some of the ideas for our future. Did the same thing yesterday with AWC president, CEO, Deanne Dawson came into town yesterday. We took her around as well. And I had a really cool opportunity yesterday through the Washington State Narcotics Investigators Association held a little kind of Q&A with Senator Mark Mullet in Everett, and we had a really good about an hour and a half, 2-hour discussion with him, letting him know our concerns on public safety, fentanyl, unlawful possession of firearm. He got hit with quite the smorgasbord of issues. So very good event. And then I will put in a plug for everyone pull out your calendar. September 28th at 1800, 6 o'clock for your Navy guys. PM. And that is going to be the Sam Quinones event at Cavallaro Mid School. I would love to see everyone there. And I would love to see that each of you brings 3 or 4 of your neighbors. It's a very important event to understand what's going on with fentanyl in our communities and some possible solutions to that as well. So please attend September 28th, 6 o'clock. Everyone is.
I invited the CT board to come and
Excellent.
CT staff.
Excellent.
And have an Aquafest board meeting that night. But I'll probably put that off and come to yours.
Excellent. Oh, this week better.
Maybe.
All right, let's move forward. Can I get a motion to pass the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
I've got a motion to pass the consent agenda, and is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Let's move forward to the public hearing tonight. I'm gonna open up a public hearing on resolution number 2023-14, authorizing surplus of the Public Works street sweeper to the great city of Forks, Washington. Director House, do you have a report?
I do. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Let me, give me just a moment to get my computer to load. Then, I'm just trying to get my computer to load the document. I've got it. Thank you. The city of Lake Stevens is asking to surplus a 2007 Sterling street sweeper. The street sweeper was damaged in a vehicle collision several months ago and was determined to be a total loss. The city did receive an insurance payout for that street sweeper. It has been stored at a mechanic shop since then. And the city of Forks would like to procure that street sweeper from Lake Stevens as a parts sweeper. As you can imagine, the city of Forks doesn't probably have a lot of revenue generated in their stormwater utility to procure a new sweeper. So we think it's the highest and best use for this damaged street sweeper. So the city had it appraised. The value is about $3,500. It's not a lot. It's a pretty well-used sweeper. It's really at the end of its life. The other option, if we weren't to surplus it or sell it, through an ILA to the city of Forks, is to bring it back up here, try to auction it. It's going to be about $1,000 to get it back up here. Who knows what we're going to get at auction? It's pretty well damaged. We do think that this is the best use for this street sweeper. It's a good hand up for the city of Forks. They can certainly use it. So we ask that the council make a motion to adopt the resolution to allow the city to complete the intergovernmental sale of the street sweeper to the city of Forks.
Questions for Aaron?
Yeah, who is paying for the shipping of a non-rolling sweeper to Forks?
It will become Forks, the city of Forks vehicle, once we have sold it to them.
So
Where
they
it
have,
is in
and they
Tuckahoe.
have to come get it?
They'll have to come get it.
Okay.
Aaron, did you say that the insurance paid out? Does that entitle us to obtain a new street sweeper?
No, the payout for the street sweeper, given its age and condition, was just over $80,000.
Any other question? Maybe Forks could use it to sweep by 5 all the way through Stevens. Okay, with that, I'm gonna open up the public hearing portion of tonight's item. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on just this subject?
Anybody online that would like to speak to the public hearing tonight on the surplus of the Public Works sweeper?
Anybody?
Nope.
Okay, with that, I'm gonna go and close the public hearing, open the floor back up to Aaron. Any additional comments?
No.
Council, discussion. Hearing no discussion, can I get an action on this item?
I move to approve resolution number 2023-14 to authorize the surplus of the Public Works street sweeper to the city of Forks.
Second.
Yeah, I got a motion in a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Forks gets a new street sweeper.
A new sweeper.
New to them.
Ish.
New to them.
Destroy.
Forks get some.
Just-
Parts.
That's right.
Good for them. All right, let's go to discussion items. Barbara. The preliminary budget discussion.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Okay, so we're getting into our 2024 preliminary budget. So one of the requirements is we go over our preliminary revenues and base budgets to start with. So that's what we're gonna do right now. I know we're all looking forward more to our council retreat, which will go over the actual mayor's proposed budget, which is in a few days. So working hard on that as well. Okay, so this is our preliminary budget calendar. Only a couple things have changed a little bit since it was presented to you before the council hiatus. The only things that have changed is because we're having the preliminary budget and staffing discussion at the mini retreat this Friday. We are not having a meeting on the 19th, and so that will push our 2024 capital project budget to the 26th. So as I mentioned earlier in the year, we just based on how our meetings landed on calendar days, as well as some conferences and some other things, losing about 2 weeks in our process. And so we should be done. First public hearing is the end of October. So October 24th, we'll do the property tax public hearing, as well as the public hearing number 1, the budget. And then our second public hearing and possible budget adoption will be on November 14th. And that way we need to continue it, which we haven't done in many, many years. I think the last time we did it was due to a winter storm and we had to close. And so if we need to, that one is there prior to our required December 4th deadline. So looking at our revenues, as I mentioned, we're looking at our 2023 versus 2024 base budget. So this shows you your 2023 budgeted revenues, your estimated, just based on where we've gone now. One of the big ones in the general fund change between the budgeted and the estimated is our investment interest. We all know the investment interest was fairly high this year. We don't anticipate it will be as high next year, so we'll go over kind of some of that. So the estimated change between the estimated revenues and base budget for general fund is only about a 0.6% increase. Though with the actual, if you take it based on the actual budgeted revenues, it's quite a bit more than that. A couple highlight things. Other general fund, that is our reserve fund, our pandemic recovery, and the permit fund. So there's a slight decrease expected in construction sales tax and possibly in permits. It decreased from what we're bringing in this year versus what was actually budgeted. So it'll be higher than we had, I think, expected this year, but a little less than budgeted. So special revenue, this increase, the 4.2%, that is due to our transportation benefit funds that we'll be receiving. So that is a special revenue fund. And then I highlighted the debt service. This is actually a decrease because we paid off one of our debt obligations it'll be paid off in 2023. And that is the 2015 LTGO bond for the old PD on Grade Road. So that was paid up this year. And then the capital projects, there's a decrease in the estimated REIT revenues and also in grant reimbursement. So that's what those changes are. So we anticipate an estimated decrease in revenues by about 10%. Again, grants, investment interest, those types of things. Looking at our base expenditures, our general fund increased due to wages and benefits. And this does forecast all vacant 2023 positions as filled in 2024. So that is your 14% increase. Just includes cost of living and positions being filled. General other funds, that's a huge decrease down to 76,000. 76% decrease, and that's just, we anticipate all of the projects for the pandemic recovery to be spent in 2023, but they won't be. So we'll roll that forward in 2024. So that will increase next year. Capital projects decrease as new projects are not included in the base budget yet. Again, the debt service, as I mentioned, that was an expenditure and a revenue, and so that's decreased due to the payoff of the bond. And then equipment. We don't have the requests shown in the equipment funds yet, so that's why you show the large decrease. So once we go through the actual proposed budget, preliminary numbers, those will change. This is looking at all the funds broken down by type of fund. So you have your general fund, and then your other funds, special revenue fund, debt service, all broken down by type of fund. Including all of your beginning balances, revenues, expenditures, and then your base ending cash amount. I did put a graph on the side that shows the differences between the 2023 budgeted ending, 23 estimated ending, and then the base, and this is for all funds. So 2023 estimated ending is more than the 2023 budget, as you can imagine, due to open positions and projects not yet complete. So a lot of those projects will roll forward. And then the 2024 base budget doesn't include any requests or capital yet. We show this every year. These are our major revenue sources citywide. It's broken down, it's highlighted by fund. So the top 5 are general fund. The building zoning, those are in the permit fund, which is a managerial fund for the general fund, and those are restricted. Then you have the street fund, that's property tax, utility, and state shared. I've also added the transportation benefit program in here as well, so we can keep track of that as a major revenue source. And then impact fees, and then our surface water fees. So this actually shows that our largest revenue source citywide, of course, is taxes, property tax, real estate tax, sales tax. Construction sales tax was down a little bit in 2023. And that is. Oh, and then we have a spike in REIT in 2021 and again in 2022. And so hence the drop in 23 and anticipated in 2024. Surface water, which is the one at the bottom, we show a 4% increase. This is based on our 3% increase in our, that's in our fees resolution. So part of our rate study, it's 3% increase and an additional 1% additional homes and things. I do believe that Public Works and Shannon will be looking at doing a rate study in the next year as we need to go ahead and update those in the fees resolution. So we're looking at doing that and finding out what projects we still need to do and what that looks like. And then permit fees, those are the ones in the pink. As I mentioned, we do show an increase over the estimated for 2023, but a decrease in the actual budget. So I was just discussing with Director Wright that this year is more of a higher on plats, and so working on the plats. So next year should be higher on the building permits. So we're looking forward to those things. And local sales tax and use, I mentioned this, it's a 4% increase. It's technically a 6% increase in retail sales tax, but some of the construction sales tax, et cetera, is actually down a bit. And so it's only a 4% increase overall in our estimates. And if you want to refer back to this, it has other information regarding what fund it is and what uses, whether they're restricted, unrestricted, there's some restrictions, that type of thing. I do have a slide that I will show at the council retreat that breaks down all of our funds. And so it shows each fund and how it actually lays out in the fund structure. And I always talk about the buckets of money, and it'll kind of show how those buckets actually line out too. So this is just another way to look at our major revenue sources. As you can see, local sales tax is our largest, and we do expect an increase in 2024. 2023 adopted and 2023 estimated are pretty close. So we did pretty good on that estimating. Transportation benefit district tax, we do think we're gonna get a little bit more than we had budgeted for. I think we budgeted for 750. We're thinking it might come in a little closer to 8. So that's good news for us. And then next year we have it budgeted for 1.5 million. Then the major revenue sources I have by fund, just giving you the percentages. As you can see, general fund has the majority of the revenues, and that's broken down in the other graph there. Shows that sales tax is 27%, property tax are 15%, utility tax 11%, and then state shared and permit fees. So I still remember back when property tax was always much bigger than sales tax, and we always looked forward to the day when sales tax was bigger. We're there. Thank you. Okay, so looking at our property tax history, just a really good thing to take a look at. Shows how our assessed values increase and then the levy rates decrease. So the 2023 assessed value increased 43% over the 2022 assessed value. And in 2024, it's estimated a decrease of 2.2%. So early in the year, the auditors, Snohomish County Assessor's Office sent out preliminary assessed value information on school districts. They have to get that out first. And it showed that the school district was going to decrease something like 16%, but I had originally estimated about 3%, so we were pretty close on our estimated decrease. This does not include any new construction or annexations. I did just receive the updated information with the new construction today, and it looks like it'll be about $89,000. So that is on top of the estimated revenues in here. About 64,000 or 72% of that goes into the general fund. So there's a little bit additional funding in that coming in based on new construction. I always throw this slide in there. It is council's priority or prerogative to, look at all untapped revenue sources and determine what we should go for, what not. This is the same one as utility taxes. We have utility taxes on our electric, phone, gas, garbage, and water. We do not have utility tax on sewer or on stormwater, so I just put those estimates in there if we did go along with those. Jumping into our general fund revenue assumptions specifically, as I mentioned, it's about a 3.9% increase over our 2023 budget, 0.6 increase over 2023 estimate. So this is kind of the first thing that we looked at when we started looking at budget requests, was how much additional funding is there to be spent. And so as you can see, it's not a whole lot of additional revenue in 2024. Property taxes, I just kind of went over that with you. I'm not going to go into that in any more detail. It is still 72% general fund and 20% street fund at this point. Sales, as I mentioned, we're estimating a 6% increase in our forecast, but it ends up being about a 4% when you include the contingency fund, other sales tax as well. Investment interest, I do anticipate about a 10% decrease. They are looking at actually decreasing our federal rate that we have for LGIP, but it'll likely be mid-year before that really occurs. And then, as I mentioned, permits, we continue to look at those. The land use was up this year. We expect permits, the actual building, to be up next year. So Russ and his team are actually taking a harder look at that one as well. And again, those are restricted just for use for related to permits. So the revenues come in and pay for those expenditures. General fund expenditure assumptions. It's a little less than 1% increase over the 2023 budget, and that's due to one-time expenditures. There was a lot of consultants contracts that we did out of the general fund this year that had grant expenditure or grant revenues along with them. Any of those unused will be rolled forward into 2024, but taking out all the one-time revenues, it's a small increase over the budget. It's about a 14% increase over the estimated, and that again is because of the vacant positions. Salaries and benefits. It's based on your base budget is based on the current staffing levels. And then I think we'll talk more about the cost of living increases and the current CPIW during the staffing discussion that we have on Friday, but the current CPIW for our area is 4.5%. The council has historically done a 90% of CPI for cost of living increases, and so that would be at 4% for the non-represented. The guild non-commissioned already have a contract for 2024, and it is set at 4%. And then guild commissioned and Teamsters are being negotiated, and we did put in an equivalent placeholder just used for the estimate so that we don't get caught off guard. So those are not set, but we've used that same number in our estimates at this point. Medical dental looks like it's going to increase it's between 4% and 7%. So we estimate on the high side, just based on the majority of the increases are on the Regent side, and most of our people are in Regent. So. And then additionally, this year, there was a huge cost increase in our liability and vehicle insurance through WCIA. It's about a 25% increase. That is allocated out amongst the different funds based on number of vehicles by fund, the number of accidents by funds. Everything is kind of allocated out. So that's a pretty big increase this year. So this is our base budget forecast for the ending balances. And you have the total revenues in orange and the total expenditures are in the gold. And then we have the 2023 budget amount that was updated after we got everything settled at the end of the budget session in 2023. And then we have our mid-year, which kind of shows the trending up in our ending balances based on increased interest, decreased expenditures for vacancies, and then our current 2024 base budget. Our current 2024 base budget goes out to 2029. That's our 6th year. And we're just under 171,000 negative. This isn't the worst thing. Having a lot of conversations with our neighboring cities, having a negative ending fund balance at the end of the years is not as scary as it sounds. As long as we're keeping track of it, most of the my counterparts actually just, as long as it's with outside of a 4-year period, then it's not the worst thing. We are definitely have quite a good reserve in our contingency fund. We do hold that as basically placeholder for when something happens to our general fund. We do continue to spend a little bit more than we are bringing in. I think the mayor's recommended budget is actually brings that down again to a little closer to balance. But we do have the reserve, and so it's not as scary as it always seems that we go down in that direction. But it's good to keep it in mind. It's basically a stop sign that says, okay, be careful, keep an eye on what you're doing, and don't make any rash decisions. So let's see. Next, street fund assumptions. Again, with property tax, multi-vehicle, multimodal transportation tax, that is our fuel tax. Again, that is based on gallons purchased, not price of the fuel. It is increasing. The state anticipates it increasing about 1% next year. So we have that built in there. Garbage utility tax. It is about a 1% increase just based on additional customers and their basic cost increases. And then our expenditures, as I mentioned, most of the street fund is Teamsters. And so we have a placeholder in there, but that 2023 contract remains negotiations at this point. Going to continue with the annual pavement preservation amount, and that's in addition to the transportation benefit amount. And then continue contributions to equipment fund. And I did speak with Director Halverson about getting the lease replacement schedule so we can determine exactly how much we need to put in each year for that lease replacements. And then no capital projects are included in the base budget yet. So stormwater, again, 4% increase to the surface charges. Investment interest, again, we show a decrease of about 10%. Our operating base budget, again, just includes salaries and benefits, continues with the lake treatments. And then our capital expenditures, there aren't any capital expenditures in there right now, although there are some in the requests. And so in the mayor's proposed budget, there will be some plugged in there. And then any 2023 projects that haven't been completed will roll forward as well. And then our debt expenditures I put in here, we have the decant land purchase that will be paid off in 2024, and then the Vector will be paid off in 2025. And so this is the last of the debt we have in the stormwater funds. And this is just taking a look at our forecasted ending balances again with our 2023 budget and then the 2024 base budget. And then looking at our 2024 priorities, I might just put this into every presentation. These have not changed since we presented it to you prior to the council hiatus. Again, these are rolling forward our 2023 budget priorities as we are continuing to move forward in the same direction at this point. And then again, looking at our next step, we have our preliminary budget. So we'll review requests, strategic staffing, the cost of living, CPI, and then go into our capital budget, finalize our proposed budget, and go through public hearings. I have questions.
I have a couple questions for him. Oh, sorry. Couple of questions for you. We have seen, I think I've been here 7 years, and every time you present the diminishing income stream, it's always ends up in a negative 5, 7 years out. So I guess the question is, today, we still have a number of unfilled positions. We don't have our labor contracts in place. So 2 questions. Today, how would you characterize the financial health of the city today? And the second question, how would you characterize the financial health of the city with all the positions filled and the worst case scenario of all our labor contracts being fulfilled?
I think one of the things I'll say is that in our budget, for 2023, we have placeholders in there for some potential cost of living increases, some of those things. I don't think they're gonna hurt us as much as we had kind of anticipated in beginning, even going with, whether that's the 60 percentile, those kind of things. Our fiscal health is really good, especially in comparison to some of our sister cities. We have always run fairly conservatively. We hold a really good reserve balance. As you mentioned, we do have a lot of vacancies that is helping to push our curve out, and every year that happens. One thing that we actually aren't as conservative in, which we could be more conservative, but there really isn't a reason to, is some other cities actually, when they budget a new position, they budget at the highest step with the highest medical and dental and everything. We don't do that because it's not realistic. And so we could even show even more of a balance at the end of the year. But every year, that's one of the things that the auditors look at is your going concern. How do you look fiscally? And we haven't been looked at on going concern in even back in 2009, having issues. It's just not how we have run the city. So I think we're great today. I think adding all of the additional things, yeah, we need to keep an eye on it. We can't overspend, and I think this council knows that. But we have room. We have room for some things to do. And I know one of the things we keep talking about is the city hall, and we do have room in debt, in bonds, that kind of thing. So the more bodies we add, the more room we need. So that's one of the things we're definitely running into at this point. And so that part of our strategic staffing plan is, where do we put people? That's one of the things we talked about with the sewer district when we're doing our transition talks, is where do we put people? When we start figuring out who they are and where they go in this, where do they go? Where are we putting positions? And so that's always a topic of our conversation.
Okay, thank you.
Theoretically, we could add a 6% sewer tax, not that I'm for it or against, but how many cities around us have a sewer tax?
I'll have to double check it, but last time I looked at it a few years ago, it was the majority of them.
So almost
And
every-
some of them are a lot more than 6%. Some of them are 20%. And there is no cap on that tax.
So we could put whatever we want, but 6 was just a thought maybe that was consistent with what other jurisdictions do.
It's consistent with the rest of our utility taxes. So phone, telephone, electric and gas are all legislatively required, no higher than 6%. So that's state law, 6%. And so we did water at 6% and gas, and garbage at 6%, just it's consistent. Gotcha. So that works. I believe it's the same with stormwater too. Stormwater, if we decide to go forward with stormwater, there's just a timing aspect on that. We ran into that last year too. So we started talking about it. It's a timing of it in advance of the assessors actually putting it on goals and then pushing it out, and there's a 60-day period on that. So you have to, if you're going to do that, you have to in advance. Have to with the other ones. The other ones you can start with the year versus stormwater has to be started.
Great, thank you.
Anything else for Barb? Ryan's lawyer thinking.
I'll withhold my question for now.
So I will put together a packet of, we talked about last year, the detail of people's requests. I will get that to you guys in the packet with the mayor's recommendations for Friday, so you can actually see the backup of when a position is requested in the mayor's budget, what was that position, what's it mean? What's it for? So I'll get that into the packet. I guess I have a little extra time to look through that stuff.
All right, great. Appreciate it, Barb. Good report. So we're gonna move to an executive session, and that executive session is reference to property acquisition. Per RCW 42.
I don't know, he's so cute.
0.1101C. There's no action expected.
Mayor, I'm sorry, we just had a change of potential action.
Oh, we have potential action.
Yeah,
So
potentially.
if you want to stick around for potential action, that's great.
And we need 20 minutes to start.
And we are gonna need 20 minutes for that. So we will ask, again, to clear the area. And if you wish to come back with potential action and adjournment, do so. Thanks for being here tonight. Introduction of executive session. There is no action to follow on the executive session. We're taking a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?